Good afternoon, and welcome to the Community Voice. I am your host, Versi Green, and I have some very interesting guests with us today. As we know, the issues on the red light cameras and how the voters has voted not to have the red light cameras, but there are still several issues going on with the red light cameras. And today we have Mr. Michael Kobos with us. He is to my right, and he's with the Citizens Against Red Light, against the red light camera issues.
Right.
And he was just kind of telling us a lot in the back about this red light issue, and he's going to give us a lot of information today. And we want to welcome to the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to my left is my president, which is Pastor James Nash, who is the president of the SunnySide Place Community Development Organization. And he has also just recently been nominated to the Public Defenders Board or Public Defenders Board, which is a whole nother show. And I know at some point in time he's going to come on with us to talk about the Public Defenders Board and how that's going to work and how it's going to help our citizens. So, Mr. Kobos, as we move right along, we're going to let you give us a little bit of history. I was one that voted against the red lights.
Good.
Maybe I don't want to tell the audience that, but yes, I did. And since that time, there are people that's kind of taking advantage of the situation, saying, okay, in a red light, and there's no cameras, so I'm just going to run the red light. And we know that that's not the way it should be. But what we want you to tell us and give us is the issues and all of the things that's going on with the red light cameras. And I want to give you as much time as we possibly can to tell us about that today and tell the audience, because we want to actually get this out into the community, because a lot of people are not really listening and saying, okay, hey, how is this going to affect me? How has it affected me? And what can I do to protect myself? Okay?
Yes, I'd like to start off by telling the citizens that I'm against anybody, anytime, running a red light to avoid waiting on a traffic signal. And so I've never been a proponent for anybody running the red light and breaking the law. We're against that. But the red light camera issue became an issue many years ago in 1996, when we learned that companies were installing them in San Diego, and in doing so, they were shortening the caution light. Whenever you approach a red light and a green light and it turns caution, at that point you're in something called a dilemma zone. You know how fast you're going, you know how far you are from the intersection, but one thing you're not sure of is how long will the light remain caution. And you have to make a quick decision. You do it every day. Do I slow down and stop, or do I speed up and go on through the intersection? And now, when a police officer sees you and the light turns red while you're in the intersection, you haven't broken the law, because the law allows you to be in the intersection with the light red so long as you don't break an imaginary line point called fail to stop at a designated point. But we know that most of the people don't really understand this, and these camera companies they will come in and they will tell us that tell the city council members that, if you get these cameras, initially the cameras accidents will go up, but eventually the accidents will go down. All independent studies show that accidents increase at intersections where there's red light cameras. In fact, the Stein report, the Mayor White asked Professor Stein from the Rice University to do a study, and in doing this study, he found that at some intersections, accidents went up 913%. Overall, it was up over 133%. And it doesn't save lives, it doesn't reduce accidents, so what is it for? Well, now it's obvious, since we've voted the cameras out, all you hear about is budget shortfall and how much money is going to be lost because the cameras are not there. Now, if they want to make an intersection safe, it's very interesting to know that there are engineering studies that can be done. Think about the train downtown, and how are they protecting the train to try to keep people from running into the train? They've put lights in the ground. They've put sensors there. They've put halos around the lights, trying to let people know that a train's going to be passing by. But what did they do if they want to make a citizen safe at an intersection? Well, they stick a birdhouse up with a camera in it so they can photograph you and send you or whoever was driving your car a month later telling you that you owe the city $75. It just doesn't work.
Can I inject something right there? That's real important. If somebody is driving your car and they take a picture of that, you're going to get the ticket. So how does that work as far as saying, okay, I wasn't driving my car, someone else was driving it, but I have to pay the ticket?
Well, the city, here's what the cities are doing. The person who last legally registered the car is the person that's going to get the citation, not the person necessarily driving the car. And so when they do that, they're wanting the citizen who owns the car to sign an affidavit pointing to somebody else so that they can go after them if they were driving the car. Well, the truth of the matter is it's a poor way to reduce accidents because it doesn't do it, and it's a poor way to change behavior of people who drive cars in the city by saying that you're going to send the person who actually the car was registered to. Now, of all the money that's been collected, I believe about $44 million, no person that lives in Harris County that I know of really had to pay this because, and I'm against people running red lights, but there's no teeth in the law, and that's a real concern to me.
So, so what is the court? What's actually going on with it now, as far as the lights are still working? The voters voted against it. They should not be given tickets. So kind of what's going on there with that lawsuit in between? How are they actually handling it?
Well, let me tell you what's happened. Let me go back and give you a little bit of history. I didn't want to speed all the way up to that because I wanted to kind of wrap up with that, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay.
But let me explain to you.
Take us the way you want to take us.
Linda Harper Brown, a state representative from the Dallas area, she tweaked the transportation code by adding the word civil in the commercial trucking. And when asked on the third reading if this was only about commercial trucking, she said yes. Or actually, she never responded, but her desk mate said yes, just commercial trucking. Once it passed, she told the Dallas Morning News that the trick of the amendment was that now cities can start issuing tickets by photo enforcement. Listen, it's always been a trick. I ran a light to challenge the constitutionality of the red light cameras. When all this came about, I knew that we had to do something to try to challenge it. And so back in September of 2006, we notified the press that we're going to run the light to get a ticket so we can challenge the constitutionality of the red light cameras. I had my family there with poles crossing the intersection. We made the announcement. I was live on KTRH radio. They had me wired up. They had the TV cameras there. We had about 30 of my family members there. And about that time, 2 police cars pulled up. And one of the officers got out and said, "Michael, are you going to run the light?" I said, "Yes, right at 7 o'clock. He said, "Well, I've been sent here to write you a ticket, and they've turned the cameras off so you can't get a ticket." Now, wow. So I had to make a decision. Do I go ahead and run the light or what? And I said, well, I've said I was going to do it. So I ran the light, realizing at that point I was going to get a ticket when I got to the other side. It's a very difficult thing for me to do. But the officer said, "We'll block the intersection like a parade. Nobody will come. Just go ahead and run the light, pull over, write you a ticket, and we'll leave." And so he took my driver's license from me before I ever ran the light and actually wrote me the ticket, said, "I'll get you to sign it after you run the light." So I did, and he gave me my license back after I pulled over. Well, that made national news. I was on Fox and Friends. Major media picked it up. Well, then they called me and said, oops. They talked to my brother Paul and said, look, because they didn't mean for it to get this big. Said, look, what we'll do is we'll let your brother run a light another time. Just go ahead and do it. We won't be there to write him a ticket, and we'll give him a ticket. I did that so I could challenge it in court. We appealed the case to Sherilyn Woods' court, and I won on constitutional grounds because the evidence used in the hearings is unauthenticated. And so Sherilyn Woods said, "Mr. Kubas, you win," but she didn't take the cameras down. So everyone thought I lost. So then we had to come up with how are we going to do this? So we met with our lawyers, and they said, well, you need a charter amendment to challenge to get the citizens the right to vote. So it made sense to us. Every time the citizens have ever had the right to vote on these cameras, they've always voted them out. They're batting 13 for 13 now, Miss Green. Think about it. And because the citizens can see through all of this, they realize it. Well, we won the vote by 5.64%. And then they begin to say, well, we got a contract. And so they wanted to stall it out. Well, we didn't go to council until the votes were canvassed. They were canvassed on November the 15th. On that day, the mayor said, we cut them off at 10 o'clock this morning. The votes have been canvassed. The cameras are off. That's what she said. But the camera company says, we really just turned off the flash and the camera. We're actually monitoring what's going on in the street. And so it's really upset people. The city said, well, we're going to file a declaratory judgment against the city. I mean, the city's going to file it against the camera company and put it in federal court so that we get politics out of the way, and let's find out how much we owe them, if we owe them anything. Well, when that happened, they did it right before Thanksgiving. The red light camera company filed a counterclaim asking that the judge throw out the election. So now an Arizona-based company is telling the voters of Houston that your election is void and no good, and they want the will of the people overthrown. And so the hearing is actually going to be tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock at Judge Lynn Hughes' court, federal court, here in Houston, Texas.
Could you tell me what the contract was, hopefully I didn't miss it, between the city and the red light company? Okay, even though they had a contract, the contract is for so long, for them in purchasing the camera, was the contract also for running the camera?
Okay, the cameras were never purchased.
Okay,
this is a lease. They pay like a lease every month on the cameras. I think one of the TV stations said that it was somewhere around $3,000 to $4,000 a month. I've heard as high as $6,000 a month. There's 70 of them. There's 70 of them, 70. And if you multiply, even if you multiply 5,000 times 70, that's $350,000 a month. Now they say it's not that much; it's closer to $3,000. That's still $210,000 a month in a lease. The city did not pay to put the cameras up. The contract says that when the contract is over and had been voided or it's over with, the camera companies have 30 days and they're to take it down at their expense.
Take it down at their expense. So, okay. So if they're not running, does the city still have to pay them? That's what I'm saying.
Well, that's why it's going to federal court to see. Okay. But I really think I see trickery in all of this.
I was just going to get ready to trickery.
I really see trickery in all this because the city attorney has only filed like a 6-page defense, of this whole issue. I see trickery in it. I see that the city wants the cameras. The red light camera companies want the cameras. So they're kind of like in a little bit of a friendly lawsuit so they can keep the cameras. They want the judge to overthrow the election and do away with the will of the people and keep those cameras. And they're trying to convince people it's all about money now and they really need the money for the police department. But initially, it was never about money. It was always about safety. But you and I both know the truth. It was never about safety. It's always been about the money. It's still about the money. And I say, let's take those cameras down. Let's get rid of those cameras. But now it's in the hands of a federal judge who said leave everything as it is, until after he gets to hear the case.
Okay. So would the city be charged for a broken lease if they said, okay, hey, the city's trying to find out how to get out of the lease.
Right.
Are they trying to find out how to get out of the lease? Would there be charges to the city if they actually broke this lease? Say, hey, forget this contract. That's it. The voters. It's useless if you got the citizens voting, and then you want to overturn their vote. Then next thing they'll do, try to overturn another vote that they may have. So the citizens voted on it, so it needs to be in effect. But what I'm asking is, can the city not pay them anything and break this lease contract?
Well, herein lies the problem. This is no longer really a legal issue, Ms. Green. This is a political issue. This is a huge political issue. And so what I believe you're saying is does the city owe anything? Well,
right.
That's the question.
With the lease.
That's why they're sending it to federal court. Other contracts with this red light camera companies